All right, so thank you everyone for joining this marketing webinar series part 4, and we're focused on end of school year promotions. And I am Julie, I'm the Director of Marketing and External Communications at AFS-USA, and I'm joined by Nina, who is the content creator of the marketing team, and Patricia, a Senior Regional Field Specialist, who will be our special guest tonight and will be presenting a bit about her recent field visit. Next slide. So in this webinar, we're going to cover some PR related resources and support. We're also going to be looking at some print resources we have available for promoting around this time. How to utilize student and host family testimonials and volunteer testimonials as well with Patricia. Incorporating host families and students in hosting recruitment. So it's a great time of year to promote AFS, but it's also, we're in hosting recruitment season. So we're really primarily looking for host families for our students. How to showcase end of year activities that you might be doing or how to plan those. We have a new standing banner and table throws. If you haven't been on our marketing material site recently, you can order those for your team to have at local events. And how to ask schools for one more presentation or even how to communicate with schools as they're going into kind of summer, and some educators, some administrators might be too busy or kind of checked out and might not be as available as they would otherwise be, but you really want to talk to them about hosting at this point. Next slide. So why is the end of the school year a great time to promote AFS? Most of you on this call, I've seen, I've met, and I know you probably know the answer to this. But there's so many fun and engaging events around this time of year, from graduation to prom to your own area team activities like end of year orientations. You might have kind of events that are being put together by fellow volunteer teams or your students even, or your families. It's a last opportunity to connect with schools before summer, as I was mentioning. And it's also a time, as you all know, that host students and families are reflecting on their experiences. They might be really willing at this time of year to share those experiences and put them to paper or in a video, or even a testimonial written down is very valuable, especially for things like social media or future emails and promotional materials. And summer is a great time to recruit new volunteers as well. So, part of hosting recruitment is also having volunteers to speak to families, widening networks, speaking to new people. And summer, many people have more time. You might actually know educators that are looking for a volunteer experience during their summer off. Many people are busier during the summer as well, vacations and things, but there might be some people that are looking to kind of supplement their regular jobs with a volunteer experience. And I think AFS is sometimes very attractive for volunteers that are looking for kind of a different volunteering type of experience as opposed to your typical volunteer experiences. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to launch poll number 1. So since we have kind of a small group here, it probably won't take much time, but I want to know, how do you promote and highlight AFS opportunities at the end of each school year? And this is like what you're currently doing. It can also be what you've done before, and it's multiple choice. So you might be doing more than one of these. You might be doing none of these, which is also fine. You can put other, and we might ask you to expand on that later on in this webinar, so we can have a conversation about it. All right, so it looks like a couple have answered, about half have answered. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share results. So it looks like many present at schools, so a variety. So many of you are already doing these things, which is great. A couple said other, so I'm excited to see what you're doing in your community, or if you're not doing anything yet, what maybe inspires you to do, like this webinar inspires you to do at the end of this webinar. But there's many, as you can see, many different things to utilize and to inspire at this time of year. All right, next slide. So I wanted to touch base on some PR resources that we currently have. So we have on Help in Learning 2 articles which might be helpful if you're looking to get in your local paper or print publication. And you might be able to Google like who is the editor at that publication, or who's kind of the point of contact. Some publications have a form you can fill out. And these 2 articles, Write an Op-Ed or The Letter to the Editor, are really helpful when crafting a new piece. So an op-ed, the difference between an op-ed and a letter to the editor is an op-ed is really like an opinion piece. So you're writing about something you might be passionate about, like AFS or hosting students. A letter to the editor is more of like a response to something that you've seen in a publication, or potentially if you know that publication is looking for things that inspire like intercultural education or travel or like anything around education, it might be a good pitch to respond to that kind of call for pieces. Or if you know that the paper is commonly promotes these types of opportunities. You can also request an ad, like a visual for a local newspaper, a digital publication. And if you don't know of any in your community, there is an online resource that we've linked, I believe in the Letter to the Editor article, that will let you identify kind of papers around the US. You can also reach out to, your school, like local school newsletter, or ask your hosted students if they have a school newsletter and provide them with something to put in it. These are all things that you could do if you're not sure kind of where to go or the first step to take. And Patricia is actually going to touch on that as well. But creating a local press release as well is a bit more time consuming, but it's potentially much more worthwhile because you can distribute it to multiple publications. So we have some customizable press releases available, but the best press releases are locally customized. So you have a quote from a student, or you have some photos that you mentioned that you can contribute, or you're sharing your own personal story. Those are the things that they're looking for, and a very strong subject line, because a lot of publications, they're looking at quite a lot of submissions, and a subject line is going to be the difference between having them read your pitch or not. And where to find existing testimonials and stories. So you can find testimonials and stories if you don't have any locally that you want to use on the AFS blog. So if it's like for hosting, we have some hosting stories on our blog where we include quotes and who has kind of submitted that quote. We also have social media where we share a lot of stories, and you could pull directly from our social. Our podcast has a ton of quotes. You have to listen to the podcast and jot them down, but you could also always reach out to us at marketing@afsusa.org. We're more than happy to provide a testimonial or quote to you, depending on what you're looking for, kind of what the subject of the story you're trying to tell is. And we also have a new workplace group for volunteers and staff where we're going to be consistently posting things that you can use on social media, but also in other promotional materials. And it's a place for volunteers to also share ideas, because I think that's where we might have a gap, is like volunteers and staff communicate with each other quite well. But when it comes to volunteer across teams, it might be more difficult. So workplace is a really good solution to share ideas and best practices. You can access that just by going on Workplace with your AFS account. But you can also click this link. We're going to share this presentation out and recording, so it'll be there, and we can also drop it in the chat so that you can join later. I know a few are already in that group, but next slide. And we also have some templates on help and learning, which we're continuing to try and build. I know that help and learning can be overwhelming at times. So if you're not sure where to go, but you know what you need, feel free to reach out to us. Nina mentioned that you can reach out to her directly for some of these things, but you can also reach out to us at marketing@afsusa.org. And we can send you kind of the templates that we think might be the best fit. You can also request a template like these through our design request form that we linked to a couple slides ago. But same for, any type of web or print ad. We request that you submit a request form because every publication is different. They have their own specifications. So different sizing requirements, different, file types, and that form allows us to collect that information from you so that we can, produce a piece that's going to fit there, that's going to be eligible basically for that newspaper or publication to post. But we utilize, Canva a lot at this time. And there are instructions on help and learning to get affiliated with Canva and what it is. We can also create something for you in Canva and send it to you as an image or as a PDF. We'll promote, there are promote volunteering, social media graphics, as well as hosting. It's also study abroad. So really whatever you're looking for, we can either create it for you or send you in the right direction to find it. Next slide. So this brings me to utilizing testimonials. I mentioned it earlier. Really, we want to be storytelling. That's the most interesting part of AFS, is the stories that our participants, our students, our volunteers have to tell. They really are, inspiring, and what makes people want to host, want to study abroad, want to volunteer with us. So how and where do you collect these stories? That's always the question. Content collection is sometimes the hardest thing to do. How do you keep organized as well if you're collecting all of these testimonials? Well, there are resources like SurveyMonkey, JotForm, Google Forms. I would recommend using some type of form to collect content from your students, your fellow volunteers, your host families, because it allows you to have things in one place. If not, you can also collect them via email and put them in an Excel sheet. But regardless, it's important to have them saved somewhere where multiple people have access. So if for any reason, you lose access, or, someone stops volunteering for AFS for any reason, multiple people know where that lives. And it's, that the people that have submitted content have both, the information around that submission. So their name, you can give them credit when you're posting it or utilizing it, and that they've given you permission to use it. That's very important, that you always get permission. For students, they've most likely checked that media consent box. And we do have media release forms if for any reason there's a larger project where you just want to be double 100% sure that the student is A-okay with sharing their content. But most have checked off that box for media consent, and you should have permission to use their photos and anything they submit to you. If you are active on social media, that's a great way to connect with people in your team and solicit content, because a lot of people are, they might not be thinking about submitting their content when they're online. They might be on their phone. They might see your social post and be like, oh, I can direct message them a few photos or a video, or I can take a video right now on my phone. In the case of many hosted students, I have some free time. But you can also include asks in your emails and newsletters that you send when you're having a conversation with someone. And then once you collect that content, it's all about telling the story. So where do you share it? If it's not social media, maybe it's a blog post, but potentially it's also in the news. So maybe you want to include that in a letter to the editor or in your press release. And then how do you leverage these stories for promoting AFS and recruiting new host families, volunteers, and schools? It's one thing to share the content, but how do you really like what follow-up happens, and how do you utilize those stories for really moving the dial, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think Patricia has a great kind of case study that she's going to share. So without further ado, I'll introduce her. Patricia is our senior regional field specialist, and I'll let her share a little bit about kind of how long she's been with AFS and her background. So thanks, Patricia.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Julie and Nita, for inviting me this evening. My name is Patricia. I live in South Carolina, but I am one of the senior regional field specialists. I work with Northeast teams of Baltimore, Finger Lakes, Mass Bay, New Jersey, and Southern New England. And I am a reverse returnee. I'm originally from Portugal. And now I live here with my husband and my daughter. We've hosted many times. I've been a volunteer, and I've been staff now for 7 years. So AFS has been a part of my life for half of my life, more than half of my life, actually. So it's quite an honor to be here tonight and tell you a little bit of the experience that I had during my field visit in 2 of my teams that I visited last month. So this was an opportunity that I had to not only meet with my volunteers face to face, but also create opportunities at meetings and things that we could do while I was there. So in one situation, we actually had a visitor from AFS South Africa with us. So the area team actually organized a meeting with school officials to meet myself and our AFS representative from South Africa, and they invited press, and also we used this opportunity to recognize the school for their 72-year partnership with AFS. So that was a great opportunity to invite the press. Listen, we're going to have someone from international staff here. We've had such a long partnership with this organization. There's going to be families and students at this event. The superintendent, who is here in this picture, came as well and was given the certificate of recognition. So this was a great opportunity to invite local press, and there were 2 different press newspapers there that interviewed us and talked about our experiences with the students and the volunteers. So it was a great opportunity to have us in the local news. So that was one of the great visits that I had in Southern New England. And then the other 2 that are on here actually came about because when I was talking with the volunteer leaders in my team about things that we could do while I was visiting with schools and events, and someone had a connection with the local TV. I said, let me reach out to our town community TV, see if they're interested in putting up a story. Our high school only has these 2 exchange students. They can participate. You can talk about AFS as an organization. I can talk about AFS as a host parent. Maybe this is something that they're interested in. And sure enough, they invited us to come and be a part of these almost an hour, 2 segments that totaled almost an hour each, where they had the students and the host parent first, and myself and the volunteer host mom in the second segment. And they released them in different weeks. So again, another opportunity that just because someone had a connection at this TV station and was able to put it together. And the second interview that we had was in a different community, and it happened the same way because someone heard, hey, oh, this is a great thing that you're doing. Let me reach out to our local press and media to see if they're interested in doing something like this. And sure enough, they contacted me. They wanted to know what dates I was going to be there. They provided me with questions they were interested in learning about AFS. These two students were invited to come as well. And we had a long conversation, and it was very different than the first one where we actually sat down and you could see the other person interviewing us. In here, they kind of created an ad for us. And I was blown away because all they had from me was my words and things that I introduced them to AFS. This person had no idea what AFS was all about. And they were able to create a video with this interview with myself and the students, and pictures that they pulled up from the internet from what I share with them. So I thought it was really great that they did this without even knowing what AFS was all about. And just because they heard about it and they weren't interested, sure, we can do this. So I think that if you have connections, you just never know. Just reach out and maybe you can have these opportunities as well. And I guess Nina is going to share the one that is a 3-minute long kind of an interview ad that he put together from our interview. We can't hear.
So AFS.
Okay.
Okay, let me know if you can hear it now.
Yep.
So AFS-USA is an intercultural exchange organization. So we are part of an AFS International organization that has 45 different partners around the world. So AFS was initially American Field Service. They were volunteer ambulance drivers during the World War I and World War II. So when they returned back to the United States, they wanted to create a program of exchange so that they could promote peace through cultural understanding and exchange programs. So I'm visiting the volunteers. We are a volunteer organization. So it's run by volunteers. They recruit host families. They support the students on program. They find host families. And they also prepare students to go abroad. So I'm visiting the area team to be able to visit schools, to recognize them for hosting exchange students, to tell them thank you in person. So then I came to the Massachusetts area, and I'm going to be here throughout the week. I started in Bedford. I'm coming into Marshfield, Hingham, Duxbury area. So when I am visiting schools, I'm also giving information about educator resources that we have, also opportunities for students that want to go abroad. They can learn more about our programs. And also, if they want to host an exchange student, this brings obviously a big diversity and cultural experience to the community as well. So I want to give that to the school so that if they have questions from their students, they can tell them about AFS.
I think AFS help you because you know that if something happens, you're gonna have someone to talk. It's like you have a host family, but you also have AFS is kind of like your extra family. So they just help you with anything you have, or if you just want to talk to someone, they're always there for you.
It makes you more self-aware of yourself, because you're more on your own. There's not yes, you have a family around you, but it's they're strangers to begin with. You need to make so many new relationships with both families and friends you meet, and that makes you a lot more self-aware.
If anyone is interested in hosting one of these exchange students, or they are interested in volunteering, or if there are students that would like to go abroad, either for summer or a semester or year program, they can visit our website. It's www.afsusa.org.
Thank you. So I thought he did a really great job for someone who is not affiliated with AFS in putting this together for us and inviting us to come to the studios to create this to share with the community. So, and then the other ones, I know that Julie's just shared the links in this segment with myself and Ashley. I don't know where we're going to listen to those short segments that we mentioned earlier, or okay,
I'll play two like maybe 30-second segments of
right.
one.
So
bear with me here. Oh, sorry.
and
So you want to explain what the first
yeah,
segment
yeah.
is about?
Yeah, so these two short segments that she's going to mention, one of them, it's myself talking about my experience as a former AFS student and my relationship with my host family still nowadays after so long. And then the other one is our volunteer and host mom who did not go abroad, has AFS, is not an alumnus, but has an experience hosting and why she's hosting and why is it important for her to do so.
And this one might be a little quiet, so you might need to turn up your volume on your computer to fully hear it. So start here.
Or anything that they need, I do the administrative side of things.
So you handle both inbound and outbound, or?
I only work with the inbound students.
Inbounders, okay.
Mhm.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
We were actually.
Yeah, it's very hard to hear. So I think
Mhm.
maybe we'll just listen on your own time to these segments. And we actually noted in the presentation that we'll share what times to listen to.
Okay.
And Patricia, if maybe you want to just give a little bit more information.
Yeah, and they're both great. So you may want to hear the whole thing. I thought they did I was so happy that they invited us to participate, and the students themselves, they were thrilled to have this opportunity to share their experience. This is Noah from Germany and Hussein from Pakistan. They're the only exchange students in Bedford High School. They are involved in sports and they talked about when they arrived and how they got involved. And they were so well spoken. I was so impressed with them. And I think that everyone that listens to their interview in the community will be just as impressed because, I'm not saying it because, I work for AFS and this is my life placing these kids, but no, even if I had not known, I was extremely impressed with how well spoken they were and the opportunities that they are getting. So if you have a chance to reach out to your local media and local press and create these stories for these kids with families and the students and volunteers, I think it's a great opportunity. And you might not know you have things available like this. And if you do a little research, you might find it. So I think.
Okay, I think we're gonna jump forward then. Thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing that. That's great information. I watched these interviews and I agree, they're extremely impressive. So definitely recommend giving those a watch. I'm gonna jump in now. Julie, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we move forward?
Yeah, I'll just say, again, that we'll take questions at the end, but just because this is a Bedford, Massachusetts kind of highlight doesn't mean you can't share this local, like in your own communities as well. It will give it more visibility. Maybe it'll be picked up by other, people, people in your network, but also, anyone else that sees it. So feel free to share these as well, either on your social media and an email. They're really great stories that they tell, as Patricia and Nina have shared.
Great.
Thanks, Patricia.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we'll jump forward. And this kind of relates to some stuff that Patricia shared. So something that's really important, especially before students go home, is incorporating host families and exchange students in our AFS promotions. So, host families and students are obviously extremely busy. We want to make sure that promoting AFS is as easy as possible for them. So providing them a variety of resources and communicating that we have those resources with them is important. Something new that we actually have is a presentation for students. I think this is actually something that we had discussed in a previous webinar where students could have a presentation template to share their AFS experience. I'll click on this one real quick. I know we're not clicking on most of the links in this presentation, but since this is a new one, I'll show you really quick what something like this looks like. So this is an opportunity for a student to share their exchange experience. Obviously, they can change whatever they want here and edit the presentation. If they needed a version that wasn't in Canva, they could reach out to us and we could provide them a PDF version or help them, customize this or create this if they're unfamiliar with the platform. So this is a great end of year thing to provide students if they want to present to a class or if there's a community event or another appropriate situation where students can really round out their experience. I think it's important, especially at this time of year, to include students in the conversation because they have so much knowledge of AFS now that they've been with us for most of them for an entire academic school year. So providing them the opportunity to share their experiences is great. This is also a general AFS presentation that host families can use. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to customize it. It includes all the information about AFS, study abroad, volunteer, and hosting. So that's a really easy one to use. I believe this link is a PDF version of that presentation that they can use. And then we also have pre-made content that host families can share. We have an email template, a text, a social media caption that they can include with pictures. All three of those materials are great ways for students and host families to share their experience without too much extra work. Something else that we also recommend is asking families and students to share area team and national content. So getting your students involved with your area team's social media accounts and their host families is really important because the more that our content and your content is shared, the more people we're reaching, the more volunteers and host families we're recruiting. So asking them to reshare is a very easy ask. A lot of host families and students already follow our accounts, but if they don't, it's a great opportunity to spread our mission even more. And I think I need to exit out of here to click on this one, but we also have host families that often share their own experiences. We got this great video. I'll play the first 10 seconds, but a host family recorded a video and tagged us and they shared their hosting experience. I don't know if you can hear this.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Britt Madera. I'm a host mother and we live here in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. My husband, Jeremy, and I, we have hosted 2 different students through AFS so far. The first one was Ariana from Malaysia. And then we also have Farhan. He's from Bangladesh. And he's a full-year student. I've actually seen exchange programs in a variety of ways from a couple different sides, actually. Whenever I was 15, my family hosted our first exchange student. My family had hosted a girl from Japan, 17-year-old Kira. And then that summer, I went on a very short-term exchange.
Okay, I won't play the whole thing. The link's in there if you want to watch it. But that is a really great example of a host family sharing their experience and introducing people to AFS. So encouraging families and students to share their own stories is a great way to bring more people into our AFS family. Where can you ask for students and families to participate? You can send emails. If you have a local newsletter that you send to your host families, you can do that as well. Social media is obviously a great one. Many of our exchange students are on social media, and that's the best way usually to reach them. So, putting up stories, doing posts, asking them to share their stories. And I know in a previous slide, we had a variety of ways that you can collect those stories. Google Forms is a really easy one. We use JotForm at AFS. So if you need any help in incorporating host families and exchange students into your promotions, let us know. We're happy to support you. Or if you have trouble finding any of these resources, let us know. These are easily linked in this presentation. They also exist on Help and Learning for your use. And now we have another poll. And Julie will launch this poll. How have you engaged students and host families in your promotions this year or in previous years? And we'll give folks a second to answer.
Another multiple choice, so I might take a minute.
Yeah, so you have to read all the
I added
options
a lot
first.
of answers. About halfway there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
International education is a big one.
All right. Sharing results now.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the results, Julie, or would you like me to? I know you're the one that made
I
this.
can, sure, I can talk about it. It looks like the primary ones are International Education Week, which is awesome to see, and social media outreach. But it looks like there are a few that might not be being done right now. There are a few other things selections. I think there was one person that chose other, so I'd be interested in hearing what that other is, if we can get to that at the end of the webinar, or you can put it in the chat, whoever chose that.
Yeah, I'm also curious what the other is. Yeah, so many different ways to engage students and families into promotions. So one big way to do that, it's very popular, is showcasing end of the year activities. Obviously this is a really exciting time of year, a little bit bittersweet because we know exchange students are going home soon, but school events like graduation, prom, award ceremonies, we've been getting a lot of posts that were tagged in about like senior nights and last sporting events. So those are really big. They're a great way to showcase student accomplishments, but also you could ask them for a reflection. You could highlight a student and how they've grown. A lot of students that come to the US might be playing a new sport for the first time. It might be their only opportunity to go to a prom. So, getting their perspective on this and highlighting those activities are great ways to showcase your area and also bring more people into the conversation about AFS. You can also highlight AFS events like departure orientations, actual departures, which are always really great to document, just, a really reflective experience for students and families, and just hanging out, end of the year trips. I know we have one AFSer going on an AFS trip to Disney World soon, which sounds really exciting. I think she'll be doing a social media takeover for us, so I'm excited to see that. I believe this link, I think it goes to, how to host an successful AFS event. So you can read up on that if you're unfamiliar, and feel free to ask us any questions. And then, so that's just like some of the end of year activities. There are a lot. So if you need ideas, feel free to reach out to us. When these events are happening and especially if you're facilitating them, it can be really easy to forget to collect content. So make sure you take photos, videos, share these events with local news, create advertisements on the internet for them, and make sure you share them with us as well. You can tag us on social media. I know more of the active area teams on social media are tagging us often, which means we can reshare their stories. Their students are more active on social media. So it's just really great for everyone. If you are sharing your content with us, we can also use your stories as promotions on a national level. We'll often share news articles or fun events that teams are throwing. So definitely always share that content with us. And I can't, Julie, can you read that last line on the bottom? My share bar.
Yeah, it's actually an open-ended question. So what types of events are your teams planning at this time? So feel free to put it in the chat, or if anyone wanted to unmute and let us know kind of what events you have going on in your teams, I'd be very interested to hear, and I'm sure others would as well, but no need to unmute if you don't want to. Feel free to put it in the chat. I'm just curious. And if you don't know, that's also fine if you're not, the volunteer that coordinates those, but
Yeah,
it's always interesting.
I'll wait like 10 seconds in case
Maybe
wants to
someone will put
unmute
it.
and share. But if not, we also will have time at the end if anyone wants to share as well. Okay, then I think we're gonna move forward. If someone is wanting to share, feel free to jump in or let me know. We're gonna show some examples of showcasing and of the activities. So these are in the presentation. Feel free to click through them when you have a moment, but these are 2 different articles. This one is just a general announcement that they're looking for host families. This one is a fun event, the AFS Fun Night. This was a month ago that a team shared this, and that's a really great way to promote AFS. The students, the community was really excited about it. So this was a great article to see pop up on our feed. Social media obviously is a big one. These are 2 posts from the Colorado Rockies team. These are from last summer and last spring, so right around the time that things are wrapping up and exciting events are happening. This first one is a post about a reflection from a study abroad student. We don't want to forget about our study abroad students as well. So this is a reflection from a student named Nolan on his year in France. And those are always really great to see. These are, I imagine, pictures from his exchange. And on the right here, we have an end of year orientation with great photos of these students. And hashtags are always great because it attracts more people to post. This one did really well. Obviously, they had 109 likes. So we have a couple other posts here. We have AFS Arizona. I know I mentioned earlier that sports milestones are really big and very fun to see. So this is a student who played his final baseball game. And then prom also is obviously a really exciting time, especially after COVID. I think many students are really excited to be able to attend prom and get to experience that in person. So yeah, these students, are all exchange students and they all got to attend together, which is really fun. This is AFS Southern New England chapter. And then another Colorado post. They had a lot of great posts. I shared a few of them. This is a booth at a kite festival. And what I really liked about this was that they were having exchange students tabling. And I think especially toward the end of the school year when students are really reflecting on their experience and they're really knowledgeable about the exchange experience, that I think is a great time for students to table at events to help educate the community about AFS. And I think that, students can be some of our best advocates for recruiting host families. So if you haven't yet, definitely, whoever is in charge of planning events on your team, if you're able to get some students out there tabling, Kite Festival sounds very fun. I'm sure it was a great time. And there's also some materials here, which you'll see on the next slide, that you can order from us. We have a lot of print resources that you can use for tabling. We have table throws, standing banners, and these are all, updated periodically with new photos. We have bookmarks, which are really fun. You might have seen those for AFS Day on National Library Day, and lots of other materials. So feel free to order those. If you have any questions about materials, you can reach out to our team at marketing@afsusa.org, and we can help you get those in advance so that you can help plan your end of year events. And the last thing I think we're going to talk about here is communicating with schools and asking for final presentations. You want to make the most of the time before school's out for the summer, because then obviously it's much harder to involve schools in your promotional efforts. I'm not sure actually what a school champion is, because I'm still kind of new to AFS. Maybe Julie can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. School champion differs depending on your area. It could be your school representative that is in Global Link potentially and is identified. It could also be someone within the school that it just is very impressed with AFS, or is your connection there, or you know that they would let you come in and do a presentation. Maybe it's a teacher that a hosted student is close with and is willing to give the hosted student space in the class to present about AFS. So a school champion can take different forms, but it's your advocate within a school, or your connection within a school that you have a relationship with, and there can be more than one. And I know that there are also some volunteers identified in various teams that are also like school champions, or they are, you know, the go-to for that school in terms of AFS relationships.
Yeah, that's great. I learned a new term today, so that's fun. Yeah, I think it's great to really have that connection with schools and have a personal connection to schools. Asking an AFSer, so a hosted student or an alum, to talk to educators or administration, bringing in a gift for teachers or school administrators, guidance counselors is always great. Reaching out to educators with our resources. There are a lot of educators that don't know how many resources and opportunities we have. So it's always great to provide something for them as well when you are, you know, doing an ask for a presentation, making sure that they're part of the conversation as well and they know what we can provide for them. We also have a letter that was recently written by Secretary Blinken and who is it, Secretary Cardona. This is to school superintendents. So you've probably seen this before. This has gone out in a few communications from AFS. And just providing this letter to schools is really great. It's really great to have the endorsement of the Department of State. So definitely utilize this letter where you can. And that's linked in here as well. And then we also have our Connect with Schools page that has additional resources on how you can connect with schools, different ways to do that, ask, links for presentations, things like that. So we have lots of resources on help and learning that you can utilize. And I think this last one says, yep, any other ideas connecting with schools that you've found successful, feel free to throw that in the chat. Or you can jump on the mic if you'd like to share your story as well. I think we're nearing the end of the presentation too, if you want to share. And we do have one more poll. And this, you know, is going to be different for everybody, but we want to know where you need the most support when it comes to end of year promotions. Where do you feel that resources are really important? I know it might take a minute to read all of these. Feel free to choose those.
I really went crazy when I was adding options here.
There's a lot of options.
It's a lot of options.
That's good.
Okay. We're about halfway there.
Okay.
Okay. So it looks like a bit of everything, which is good. I think mostly additional giveaways or print resources. That's great to know, especially coming out of COVID, because we kind of, you know, slowed down in terms of both our budget, but also, you know, people weren't going to farmers markets, fairs, etc., doing tabling events. So we definitely want to ramp up kind of the materials that we have printed and available on that store. We did just create those standing banners and table throws for teams to order. But there are stickers, there's also informational materials. Definitely go check those out. And those are free to order and free shipping, which I'm sure most of you on this call know. But yeah, so additional email outreach templates, social media templates, specifically in Canva, we're working on those, but this is all really good information for us to have. And feel free to always communicate with us at marketing@afsusa.org or by approaching myself, Nina. I'm sure Patricia is also open to hearing about those needs, because we really want to be supporting you and prioritizing, you know, what you need. What do you need most that we can give you right now? What's going to make that difference in your life, making it easier to promote AFS? So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm not sure if there's an additional slide. Let's see.
Oh yeah, there's just one more here. Just some support resources if you need them. Our request form for marketing projects. You can provide us all the info and we can help you with whatever project you're working on. If you're not in the marketing group yet on Workplace, we'd like to utilize that more, so feel free to join. I did put my email on here as well if you need Canva assistance. I know some regional field specialists are also able to help with that, but a lot of times they'll direct volunteers to me anyway. So if you need Canva help or you're lost when it comes to a template, you can reach out to me as well and I can help you. And yeah, now we have some time for questions. I see the chat has some stuff in here. I don't know if there were any questions in there, Julie.
Well, there's just a couple pieces of feedback in response to our question. So Jody said a host family appreciation dinner is something their team does, which is an awesome idea. And I know Jody's team also at orientations has those signs that or the, you know, the statements that students hold up, like I love my host family because, or, you know, I am blank from blank. Like those are great. Those are great for promotions. And you always share those with us, Jody. So thank you. And then Timothy Boyd, he had to leave, but he mentioned that they always have an end of the year picnic for students, sending students included, food, pictures, and some games. Students reflect and share about their years. And it's their first one this year since COVID. So that's, I mean, it's sad that it hasn't been happening because of COVID, but it's so inspiring and uplifting to hear that it's, you know, coming back and that they're doing it again. So that's awesome. I'm glad those events are happening again. And, you know, we're seeing more of those.
I think those are great examples on where you can invite the press. This is the first time we are bringing students and families together to appreciate for a year that has gone by. And this is the first time we're getting together since COVID. So let people know that these exchange programs are still happening despite the pandemic. And what a great experience these kids and families are having. So another great opportunity to invite press.
Yeah. One other thing I will know, if press do go to your event, or if you're communicating with press, it's always a good idea to loop us in. Most likely it will be in our media policy. It states Marlene Baker or Melvin Harmon, who are our supervisors. So if you loop us in, we can loop them in, but as long as we're aware if press are communicating. But if you're comfortable, you know, sharing your story and host students are comfortable with them being there, it's always great, as Patricia said, to have that kind of exposure and coverage. Any questions, or feel free to put any other comments in the chat. We will be again sharing this presentation and webinar, but wanted to give space if people had questions. Okay. Awesome.
Mic's turning on, so I don't think we have any questions.
Okay. Well, of course, thank you, Doreen, for attending. Thanks. I think it's pronounced Saba, but maybe not. It might be pronounced a different way, but thank you for joining. And yeah, hope to see you next time. We will have a part 5, so definitely stay tuned, and we'll take kind of your feedback on what you'd like to see in terms of support, so that we can move forward, especially with this hosting season, and get you what you need. So thank you for all you do to promote AFS, especially at this time of year. And thanks again, Patricia, for joining us. That was great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Nina. Bye.